I started arguing with him, quarrel and say, "Dad, don't do that. Dad, stop. I need you." And he stared, totally disrupted. I looked into my father's eyes and I didn't find him. And then he took the gun from me, and he said, "I'm going there and fighting and fighting." He fired the gun. That time, the shot grazed my leg. He looked right into my eyes and spoke to me like this: "If you get in front of me, I will cut you with a bullet." I never imagined hearing this from my dad. From a person that I love. Because of that guilt I carried, I did not believe that God could be good. I believed in God, yes. I believed that God existed. But I believed that God was bad. With each passing day, I looked and thought, there is no way. There is no way. I have to choose. I enter into this life, or I leave it once and for all. Tell us who you are, and what your life was like before you met Christ. Hello, my name is Thelma. I am 27 years old. I am married and have a 1-year and 9-month-old son. To talk about who I was before Jesus, it's almost like talking about a non-existent person, right? Returning to my past. I was a person, mainly without a father. I grew up in a very violent home, where I had no peace, without Christ, where there were betrayals, where there was mistreatment. There was violence with my father, with my mother, with my sister. So I had many wounds. Wounds that I never thought would be healed. And I grew up without the presence of a loving father. I was very angry, had many grudges, and this brought many sequels into my life. Many broken relationships. I didn't feel able of having friendships, of having effective relationships, of being deserving. Something that, maybe, was a simple thing for any person. For me it was something very distant. Because of this issue of deserving, I also grew up a very violent girl. Very skittish, very revolting. I mistreated people around me. All this is a form of seeking justice, of revenge. I wanted to get revenge for everything that had happened with me. Episodes of extreme violence. I was beaten up. I felt this lack of affection. So this time for me, remembering this, is very painful, but not in the sense that, I can't. But to think that many people live like this, just as I lived. Feeling this pain. How do you say the word orphanhood? This orphanhood is very difficult. It's very painful. You feel that, besides not being loved, you are rejected. It's one of the things that takes away your identity, you know. And it was one of the things that bothered me the most. I thought I wouldn't be able to have a family, to have a child, to have children in general. I thought I wasn't capable of being loved or to love. And far from this Christian home, right? Which is our ideal. Far from the principles. My family fell into many traps. Drug traps. Of prostitution. And I also fell into these traps. Thank God. I didn't fall into drugs, but I fell into the hands of pedophiles. And within my own family. For being common as an old shoe, for not being closely monitored. For not having that love and care as a child, I was abused for a few years. And it left huge after effects on me. Because of that guilt that I carried, I did not believe that God could be good. I believed in God, yes. I believed God existed. But I believed that God was bad. It brought a lot of bad things for me. Guys, you have no idea. It is very difficult here to summarize this whole story. There are some people who say, make a book, make 2 books, because the story is very long. But it's also too heavy. It's a burden that I think, that can't be carried for a long time, you know. There comes a point that you feel like you're a drying fruit. That will reach an extent where you will turn to dust. You won't last, you will explode. And this was my life before Christ. I think the rock bottom happened in my life when I became aware. I was very young. I grew up a little, and I started to understand a little more what was happening. My father, he was always my hero, my reference. So I looked up to him and I even thought he had a cape. He was wonderful. But there were a few things, while my mom and dad were married, they had a lot of violence inside the house. And because I was part of that, I thought it was natural. So I already witnessed aggressions. In my house there was a pool table. I don't know if everyone will know these, but he would take pool cues and beat my mother until they break. My mother hid under the pool table like this. And I followed her and I said, "Daddy, please, stop. Daddy, stop, you're hurting mommy." And my mother was always very thin, very tiny, and my father very big. My dad took her head like this and banged her head against the wall. And he once even scratched her face all over, because there was rough cast on the walls. It wasn't a house with straight walls. And she even scratched her face all over. And my mother once, as a form of defense, she was frying some things with hot grease. She just grabbed that pot and threw it hot on my father and burned him all over. And this aroused a much greater anger in him. That day he said he was going to kill her. It's very difficult to talk about this because they are people I love. But it was a life that I didn't understand. I thought everything could be decided with violence. I don't like you in any way. And then one fine day, my mother left, and I stayed with my father. And nevertheless I still loved my dad very much. I guess I didn't quite link these things together. He was still a hero to me. He was still wonderful. He was still my father. He was perfect. Until I started having to become more mature, because it was just me and him inside the house. I saw my father a little different from what he really was. And then one day I woke up at night. I said, "Gosh, what movement is this? What is this?" I opened the door. I went to a little corner. There was a space like a garage before the exit. And I looked through a crack like this. And I saw my dad with some people using drugs. And I had already learned about this at school, right? At school they taught about it. And at that moment the penny dropped. Because I was taught DRE, guys. And then I said, "Goodness, I cannot believe my dad uses drugs." And that moment my world was over for me. And he was drinking and using drugs. And each day he got more decadent, more violent. My father had outbursts of anger. And he beat me a lot. There were punches. He took a broomstick, hose, everything he had in front of him. He hit me, and when he used drugs he was beside himself. He was much worse. Gee, all of that was consuming me, That was consuming me. He was also at rock bottom. He left things missing inside the house. I was a little lost, feeling guilty. Because, at that time, a great shame took over me. I was ashamed because people couldn't know what was going on. They couldn't imagine that my wonderful father, he used drugs and he was a violent person. And thereafter my father got involved with a lot of bad people. My father got rid of things to have money, right? To keep using drugs. Until one day he was seriously beaten. Very seriously. By a drug dealer. And this ended up making me feel very bad. So I lived in fear. I was afraid my phone would ring. And I would receive the worst news in the world. And the day I saw my dad on the couch full of purple spots. Purple eyes. I said like this, "Guys, I can't stand this anymore. My father will die. I will be orphaned. My mom left, she doesn't care about me. And when I was younger, with all this turbulent life, with everything, I heard my mother talk like that. I can't stand you anymore. One day I will go away. It's your fault." And that kept echoing in my head. If I hadn't been born, maybe it would have been easier. Because everything, all of this was my fault. She always said she couldn't stand it. She always said we were a burden. And that was very painful. And the heaviest thing of it all is that when I was looking for an acceptance from my father, because he was living that hell too, I didn't have either. My father was disrupted for a long time. He got involved in fights, he got involved in confusion. He was extremely intolerant. I was going to him and couldn't find a host. I would go to him and I found more bad things. You know, there were several episodes. They were difficult things indeed. There was a day that he had a fight, and he got involved with a firearm. And I was very afraid, because I knew where he kept the gun. And he just came one day, yelling a lot across the street, drunk and drugged, a lot of things. That day is a cloud for me. And I knew he was going to do something to someone. Because he spoke. He yelled at the street saying he was going to kill, and so. I got desperate. And then that day I ran. I climbed up and got the gun where he left it. And he arrived. When he arrived, I wanted to hide it, but he saw that I had taken it. I started arguing with him, quarreled and said, "Dad, don't do that. Dad, stop. I need you." And he, totally disrupted. I looked into my father's eyes and couldn't find him. And then he took the gun from me, and said I'm going there and fighting and fighting. He fired the gun. At that time, the shot grazed my leg. And he looked right into my eyes and spoke to me like this: "If you get in front of me, I will cut you with a bullet." I never imagined hearing this from my dad. From a person I love. And this question of fatherhood is interesting. Precisely because of this. Because we need a father. Even though we don't have one. We long for a father. We long for a father. And it is interesting that I loved my father, but I didn't accept fatherhood from God. I said, "God, you do this because you are a big child. You play with people's feelings. Why did you bring me into the world? For me to see this?" With each passing day, I looked and thought, there is no way. There is no way. I have to choose. I enter into this life or I leave it once and for all. For me, the heaviest episode was when a certain situation happened, where I had to fetch him, which was the part one didn't tell. But I had to fetch him. I woke up with a girl calling me at the window. And the part where I stayed from house to house, until I got to my grandmother's house, and my mother's brother arrives there and abuses me. And how did you meet Jesus? What was the point that made you turn completely? It was a series of factors. Sometimes we think we are going to make a decision like this. I accept Jesus. It's not quite like that. It doesn't happen to everyone like that. With this whole situation, I made a decision that one day I will go away and will live on my own. And it was very difficult, because I didn't know anything about life and I just went. I went to find a place for me to live, a place to work. And I went after everything I had to do. And in the midst of that, I met my husband, the one who is my husband today. And it was at work. We were supposed to work. He made me a job proposal. And in the meantime, I was already living a quiet life. I mean, already took care of me. But as I said, I had a lot of sequels. Even so, my husband, at the time, fell in love with me. And that was the hardest part. Because I believed that I couldn't have a relationship. That I wasn't for that. I was extremely cold. Very strict. Very rude. And I treated him very badly. I treated him very badly in our relationship, in our daily lives. And it was something like, I wanted to get away from him. I wanted people to stay away from me, because I wasn't deserving. And on a certain day we had a fight. We had a fight just for that. He said, "You're cold like a stone." And I said, "Yes, you're right." I thought to myself, I was very angry and really hurt. Because the maddening thing is that he was right. It hurt because it was right. and then we moved away. But before that, I need to tell you that I found out he was a Christian after I started dating him. I had been dating him for a while when I found out he was a Christian. And I hated believers. I hated believers. Everything related to Christ, everything related to God. I had a lot of resistance. For all I suffered, I didn't believe that there could exist a good God who let me go through what I went through. And then I looked at people. I was angry at them because I thought that way. How can these people say that there is a good God like this? And we go through all these problems. Who is he good for? He's good only to his own, then. Because he is not for me. And then at that point we drifted apart in that fight. And I went away to spend some time alone. But that hurt me a lot. I didn't want it anymore. You know that verse. Who says that the good I want to do, I do not do, and the evil I do not want, I do. I say what I don't want to say. I found myself in a dilemma, and I spoke like this: God, everything that comes out of my mouth is bad. I push people away. I can't take it anymore. I love him, but I can't stand treating him well. I want to treat him well, but I can't. Why can't I do it? Why am I like this? And that is killing me. I kept questioning myself and saying, I don't want anymore. I don't want to live this hard life anymore. This painful life of staying away from people so I don't hurt them. I remember a Christian friend of mine. She gave me a book. It is called The Woman V, by Cristiano Cardoso, and she said, take it. Take yourself on your trip. For you to see the woman of value that you are. It is just you who does not see. And I said, this girl is crazy. Give me the Christian book. I will read it quickly, because I have nothing to do. And at that time we didn't have this thing about being on WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram. So I said I'll take it. And then when I got there, I stayed about 15 to 20 days. One fine day I looked down at the book and I said, I will take a look at it. And from the first page on, this book started talking to me, you know, in a very intense way. Very intense indeed. Things I longed for in my heart. I felt I could be this woman of value. I felt that I could have my value. I felt that I could be sweet if I knew my real father. And those were very difficult days. Very difficult indeed, because when you accept to live a different world, the true conversion, change from one route to another, you need to give up things you believe, you know. You need to give up actions. Need to give up attitude. You need to give up thoughts. And I had a lot of things rooted in me. And that was a huge shock for me. Because that book was like a guide for me that day, you know. Maybe you go there to read it today. You look and say, there is nothing in here. But it was the Holy Spirit who was talking to me there. And he asked me, do you want to come? And I said, God, I can't take it anymore. I want to meet this love of yours. Because today on earth, I am already an orphan. I want to know this care. I want to have this love, this smell, this wonderful perfume. In that time God was dealing with me. He was talking to me through this book. And I went to the Bible. And I read some verses. And until today what I carry with me is that I spoke like that, okay. I am alone in the world. I don't have anyone else. Even the person I love, I've walked away from, and that is it. That is over now, because I can't handle it alone. And then he talked to me like this. Be strong and courageous. And he continued, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And I said, if you are with me, then let's go. A couple of days later I received a phone call. And it was from my current husband. Look, I want to talk to you. Let's settle this. And then he came and I told him, well, I want to be a different person. I want to be with Christ. He looked at me like that, and he said, oh, my God, what happened to this girl? And then I said, but this is not because of anyone. It's because I'm tired. I'm very tired. It's very difficult. To do everything alone by our own strength. Not feeling protected, not feeling cared for. And then I came back. And one fine day I said, "Look, I want to go to church." He said, "Oh my, there's something wrong with this girl." And then we got there. It looked like this. That pastor, on that day, talked to me. He said things. I thought like this: there is no condition. With 5,000 people in this place. Because I went to a really big place, there were 5,000 people in that place. But it looked like he was talking to me. It seemed that Jesus came down and told him my story. And asked him, "Look, I need you to talk to her." And I didn't even see people. I didn't even see how it happened. He just asked who wanted to live a different life, announce Christ as a true and unique Lord. And without realizing it, I was already there in front, and it was all very symbolic. And I believe that, it's a step, it's an attitude, but what comes after is the cool part. And I felt that Christ, that day he spoke like this: "Cool, now you're mine and we'll go along." What has changed in your life since you received Christ? What I really longed for was this sweetness, Is this permission that people approach me, and that I did not repel them, that I was not a rude person. To be able to have a relationship with people, a friendship, a wedding. And God, he talked to me. He said, "Look, if you give up everything you think you know, if you give up yourself, I will give you everything you long for." And I say it's interesting that God, he is very affectionate with all of us in a very individual way. I remember the day I really made a decision. I was already being treated. But the day I chose to really be changed, transformed by Christ. It was on the 26th of December, 2015. And I said like this. I came home and said, "God, I'm here giving you everything. It's like if we were closing a contract here. I'm giving you my wishes. I'm giving you my dreams. And you know that one of the things that I think is impossible is having a family, a happy family, a respectful family, a husband who loves me, and that I can love and return a sweet love to my husband. But I will follow. I will follow your ways." And on the 26th of December, 2016, I was getting married. And not just getting married, because my husband felt, he felt that I could love him. He felt it and he said, day by day, "It's amazing how Christ transformed you." And then you can say, "Ah, but is that so easy?" No, every time I had an argument, or something I didn't like, I gave that tough answer, immediately. And I didn't care if it hurt. Actually, I even wanted to hurt. And when Christ came into my life, Christ spoke, "Hey, you need to restrain yourself. You are hurting someone you love." And then when the argument situation came, and I was going to answer, I breathed and spoke, "Christ, dwell in me. Christ, I want a heart like yours. Christ, why do I have so much anger? I don't want to have it. I give it to you, Lord." And then day after day I made an exercise. I did that follow-up with Christ very closely. The Holy Spirit was always there, guiding me and talking to me. Don't do it. That's not how you win. It's not by shouting that you get it. It's not in the fights. It's not with violence you'll win. And I spoke, "God, I need you to get this out of my heart. How am I going to be a mother? How will I take care of my son without injuring him?" If that was all I experienced, and I said, I really need to be a different person. And today, then God gave me everything. I thank him. Because today I have a loving husband. I am loving. I can say this, it is very beautiful. I can say that I am loving, that I am caring, and that I have a wonderful son. and that I never had the courage to injure him. I get very touched with this. Because I was afraid of myself. And today I can rest assured. Because I love my son. I raise him according to the light of God. In a very loving and kind way. We have our company. And God has restored everything. Including my father. Today he is a Christian man, he was restored from drugs. He is married and it is something that hasn't come from me. I didn't make any effort. The Lord once hit my dad like a lightning. And he is a very happy man today. In the light of Christ. It is possible. Be available. Open your heart no matter where you are. There is no drug. There is no crime. There is no rape. No abuse. There is no abandonment that will keep you away from God. And take away your merit. Christ wants you the way you are. And you are worth a lot. A lot indeed. Believe. Be intentional. Accept. It will be day after day. But one day I will also see your testimony. God will transform your life.